Hey guys, and welcome to Skyworld. I've decided to travel around Central Asia and visit some of the countries that used to be part of the USSR, so let's discover ancient cities, architectural masterpieces, delicious food, warm weather, deserts, mountains, and cotton. Welcome to Uzbekistan. It's a landlocked country in Central Asia and the former Soviet Union Republic that became independent in 1991. It borders Kazakhstan to the north, Turkmenistan and Afghanistan to the southwest, Tajikistan to the southeast, and Kyrgyzstan to the northeast. Today, the population of the country is almost 35 million people. For most tourists, Uzbekistan starts with its capital city, Tashkent. It's a huge city with a population of 2.9 million people, busy traffic bazaars, and green wide avenues. The center of the city is Amir Temur Square, a plaza with fountains and S-planes around the statue of Amir Temur, who was a legendary ruler. From the 1300s, this is where you find the famous Uzbekistan Hotel. Lots of restaurants and museums. Has a reputation of not being the most exciting place in the country, which is probably true to a point. It's a large city with a lot of traffic noise and all the things that come with it, but Tashkent has a lot of things to offer. If you look around, where else in the world would you find so many examples of seismic modernism? Seismic modernism is the term for the large-scale reconstruction of Tashkent after the 1966 earthquake. More than 300,000 people lost their homes due to this earthquake that lasted for several months. A huge reconstruction began, which brought a lot of people from the USSR republics who volunteered to help. Tashkent was restored in 3.5 years, and the reconstruction gave the city several new residential areas. It became a showcase Soviet city, combining service architectural styles and national decorations. In 1977, Tashkent got a subway system. Today, it has 4 lines and 43 stations. Most stations are so beautiful you can consider them works of art, and they reflect typical national motives like cotton, agriculture, and such, but some stations really stand out, like the Cosmic Station or Turkestan Station. One of the most recent ones, while pretty impressive, this is basically a museum and a very affordable one. The entrance is just 15 cents. Until recently, you weren't allowed to film inside the subway. Luckily, this restriction was lifted a few years ago. Tashkent is a car-dependent city. You can find a 7-lane road even around the Central Park, and the driving style of the locals, though it leaves much to be desired. Taxi rides are dirt cheap. Most of the time you're not going to pay more than $1 or $2. What about salaries? The average salary in the city is around 4.4 million. Sounds like a lot, I know, but it's in the local currency, which translates to only about $400. The city is very modern and traditional at the same time. Business and modern high-rise districts coexist with traditional Uzbek bazaars and all low-rise communities where everyone knows each other. They call these communities mahallas. Let's take a look at one of them. Foreign people are so friendly. This gentleman invited us to his house for some tea. His family has lived in this house for decades. Please. And then we saw some ladies picking up walnuts. This looks like countryside, right? But we're actually in the middle of the city. Is this? But if you want to try the most famous national dish, plav, go to the center of Plav, a tribe by the famous TV tower. They have several varieties of cloth, and you can watch the entire cooking process. Trust me, you're gonna love it. Normally it's cooked by a man and is cooked with lamb or beef. I got the lamb version, and it comes with rice and different vegetables like carrots, onions, and vegetable oil. Now it can be topped with a lot of things. Mine came with a quail egg, a regular egg, and kazi, which is a sausage made from horse meat. Sounds pretty exciting, right? So let's try it finally. Tashkent is a green city that's a countless number of parts, and many of them represent different cultures, like this Japanese garden in the very heart of the city, or this Korean garden. Over the last 5 to 6 years, the city changed dramatically. New parks and business centers were constructed, and now there's a real construction boom going on. Tashkent is becoming a real modern metropolis. Now let's talk to some locals. What are your plans for the future? So right now, I'm studying at Webster University, and in the future we can study in the US in the Webster and St. Louis, or in Webster in Geneva. In fact, take a semester, yes, in the US, yes, come back 2 semesters, right? And what's your program? What are you studying? It's just kind of programming. Oh, yeah, management information system, yes. So subscribe, yo, wonderful, thanks. Guys, the city is very safe too. Okay, I'll have a separate video about the scan, so let's move on. Let's get a car and travel outside of the capital. Funny fact about cars in Uzbekistan is that 90% of them are Chevrolet. Yes, you heard that right, 90% of cars are Chevrolet. So if you look around, Chevrolet, and guess what kind of car I ran? Well, that's the sign. It's a Chevrolet Tracker. Wow, we decided to go outside of Tashkent today and drive to the mountains, and we stopped to check out the scenery. It's Charvak Reservoir, huge body water, and the locals said there's plenty of fish here and pretty big ones, so might as well stop to enjoy some fried fish later on. But for now, let's continue to the mountains now. Who would have thought that just 65 kilometers away from the city of Tashkent there's a winter ski resort? It's called Amirsoy, right behind me, but right now it's September and it's warm. It's actually pretty hot. It's 25 Celsius, but there's still plenty of things to do. Here we're going to take that cable car. It's going to take us to the very top of the mountain, and there's going to be some breathtaking views, and I'm going to show them to you in a second. If you love skiing or hiking in the summer, good, because there are Shenzhen mountains not far from Tashkent. Finally, we are at the summit of Amirsoy, 2,200 meters above sea level. It's moments like this that you're going to remember the most. Wow, it's me sitting here admiring the majestic mountains. While you're here, you can travel around the mountains and visit some remote villages, and you're going to see some incredible landscapes like this. Foreign, over 50% of the population still lives in the rural areas. Life here is like a different planet compared to the life in Tashkent. They still cook their own bread and wash clothes by hand. They're also very friendly folks. You can easily find accommodation to stay overnight if you want to, and it's going to be real affordable. I found a guest house for just $10. Let's see what life is like in the Uzbek village. Foreign, thank you. Foreign, you're going to find a very interesting place. It's a solar furnace of Uzbekistan, built in 1981. We are 45 kilometers away from the city of Tashkent, and this is solar furnace of Uzbekistan. It uses 10,700 curved mirrors to reach temperatures up to 3,000 Celsius. Why would they want that? Well, it's to study different materials on how they react to different temperatures. Initially it was built in 1981 for military purposes, but now it has a lot of soil applications, like the working on carbon fibers and all kinds of new materials that would help in aerospace and other applications. And I was so lucky to join a VIP group, so we got a chance to go on the very top. So is it for cooking delicious crust to use big bread, you ask? Not really, but nice try. The place for the solar furnace of his biggest end was chosen carefully because the sun shines here for 270 days a year now. Before we travel to other parts of the country, let's talk about the history of Uzbekistan. These lands were occupied by nomads since the early days. Scythians, Sogdians, Karasimans, Bactrians were all distant relatives of modern Uzbeks. A huge boost in economic development came from the Great Silk Road that allowed trade and cultural exchange between East and West. The Great Silk Road turned cities like Bukhara and Samarkand into large trade centers. They traded silk, jewelry, spices, and horses. At the beginning of the 8th century, Arabs came here. They brought Islam. They also introduced the Arabic alphabet, which the Uzbeks used up to the Soviet days. At the beginning of the 13th century, Chinggis Khan, a ruthless warrior, showed up with this massive army, destroying everything in his path. Many cities like Bukhara and Samarkand were completely ruined, and most part of their population was either killed or enslaved. It took almost a century for these lands to recover. In the 14th century, Emir Timur came to power. He united the lands of Central Asia under the Timurid Empire. It was a time when science and culture were flourishing and left plenty of great monuments to us. In the early 16th century, separate Uzbek principalities were formed, the Harness of Khiva, Bukhara, and Kokand. In the 19th century, they tried to resist the Russian expansion into this area, but failed, thus becoming first a part of the Russian Empire and later the Soviet Union. Okay, now let's relocate to Samarkand, the second most famous city in Uzbekistan. To get here, you can take a fast-speed train, Amirsoy app, or rent a car, but roads are very mediocre quality, so just keep that in mind. And it's 4 hours to drive, but I still recommend driving because you're going to see so much of the countryside, and I think it's well worth it. Along the roads, you'll find homemade dairy products like iron and gujar. It takes some getting used to, but I've learned to like them. And here we are. Samarkand is the third largest city in the country with 560,000 people. Along with Bukhara, Samarkand is one of the oldest inhabited cities in Central Asia. From its early days, Samarkand was one of the main centers of Soghdian civilization and ancient Iranian civilization. Alexander the Great conquered Samarkand in 329 BCE. The city was known as Americana by the Greeks. By the way, Samarkand from Soghdian means a stone town, and Tashkent from Turkic also means a stone town. That's about all they have in common. See, in Tashkent you have to look for historical sites, and Samarkand you just can't avoid them. The most famous one is the Registan Foreign, and right now we're standing at the Registan, which is a plaza surrounded by 3 madrasas, which is the Arabic word for seminary. This one is from the 15th century and the other 2 are from the 17th century. So there's tons of history here. Let's walk around and let's admire the beauty. The name Registan means a sandy place or Desert and Persian, each madrasa has a beautiful courtyard with souvenir shops, craft shops, and the good thing is everything is locally made. Thank you. Another place of interest is the Shahi Zinda. It's a necropolis which includes mausoleums and other ritual buildings from as early as the 11th century. A lot of noble people are buried here, among them philosophers and scholars. You'll see some amazing mosaics and tombs beautifully decorated with Majolica tiles. To get around, there are small tourist buses to circulate in between the major sites, and it's so convenient. Mosque is another masterpiece in the 15th century, is one of the largest and most magnificent mosques in the Islamic world. Bibi Hanna Mosque has to be one of the most impressive buildings in the entire Central Asia. It was built under the reign of Amir Timur. The construction started in 1399 and it was finished in just 5 years. Unbelievable. They had to bring hundreds and hundreds of workers from different neighboring countries, and they also had to bring over about 100 elephants from India to carry the heavy loads. It is considered a masterpiece of the Timuride Renaissance. As you have noticed, most of these structures were built under Emir Timurine. For someone not sophisticated in Oriental architecture, you might think they all look kind of similar. Foreign Ur's empire was so huge it stretched from Syria to India, and the capital was Samarkand. There are so many other places to visit in Samarkand, like the Giri Amir, which is a mausoleum of Amir Timur.